The autumn rain tapped gently against the windows of Tech Core Industries as the clock struck 9 p.m. Most employees had gone home hours ago, but on the third floor, the lights in Lab 7 still burned bright. Inside, 10 engineers hunched over workstations, their faces drawn with exhaustion and worry. Rosa wiped her hands on her gray uniform pants before pushing her cleaning cart past the lab's glass doors. She'd been working the evening shift at TechCore for almost 3 years now. The lab wasn't part of her usual cleaning route, but Mr. Patel from maintenance was out sick, so she'd taken on his areas too. As she approached the door, Rosa noticed the unusual tension in the room. She'd cleaned plenty of offices where people worked late, but something felt different tonight. The engineers weren't just working, they looked defeated. She knocked softly before entering. A few heads turned her way, then quickly returned to their screens. Only one man, she thought his name was Chen, gave her a tired smile. "Sorry to disturb," Rosa said quietly. "I need to empty the trash," Chen nodded. "Go ahead. Sorry about the mess." Rosa moved carefully around the lab, trying not to get in anyone's way. The whiteboard walls were covered with diagrams, numbers, and hastily scribbled notes. Crumpled papers overflowed from the trash bins. Empty coffee cups littered every surface. As she worked, she couldn't help overhearing their conversation. "We've tried every possible configuration," said a woman with curly hair pulled back in a messy bun. She rubbed her eyes, leaving a smudge of marker on her forehead. "The simulations keep showing the same pressure drop once we scale beyond the 20-liter mark." An older man with a salt and pepper beard slammed his hand on the table. "The prototype works perfectly at small scale. It just doesn't make sense." "Well, something's wrong with our design," said a younger man wearing a faded university hoodie. "And if we don't figure it out by the end of the month, the whole project is dead." Rosa glanced at the central workbench as she passed. A device about the size of a microwave sat in the middle, surrounded by tools and components, tubes and filters connected to a water tank. It didn't look like much, but she could tell from the engineers' faces that it was important. She finished emptying the trash and was mopping near the door when the lab phone rang. The bearded man answered, his shoulders slumping further with each passing second. "Yes, Mr. Hayes. No, we haven't solved the pressure problem yet. Yes, I understand the importance of the deadline. No, sir, I'm not making excuses." The other engineers exchanged worried glances. When the call ended, the man didn't speak for a long moment. "That was the CEO," he finally said, though everyone had clearly guessed. "He's giving us 2 more weeks. After that, he's pulling the plug on the entire project." A heavy silence fell over the room. Rosa paused her mopping, feeling like she was intruding on something private. The curly-haired woman broke the silence. 10 years of my life working toward clean water solutions. And it comes down to this: 2 weeks to solve an impossible problem. It's not just our jobs on the line," said Chen. "This filtration system could help thousands of people. Those drought-affected communities in East Africa are counting on affordable solutions like ours." Rosa's ears perked up at this. Water filtration? For drought areas? She thought of her childhood village in Guatemala, where the women walked miles each day to collect water during the dry months. She remembered her grandfather's clever system of containers and tubes that had caught the rare rainfall and kept it clean for drinking. The engineers were now arguing about technical details that went over Rosa's head. Words like membrane fouling and reverse osmosis flew back and forth. She finished her mopping and pushed her cart toward the door, but something made her pause. "Excuse me," she said softly. The room fell silent as 10 pairs of tired eyes turned toward her. "I'm sorry to interrupt," Rosa continued, her heart racing. "But did you say this is a water filter for places without much water?" The bearded man, Dr. Wells, according to his ID badge, looked surprised but nodded. "Yes, it's a new type of filtration system designed to be energy efficient and low maintenance. Ideal for remote areas with limited resources." Rosa hesitated. What was she doing? These were highly educated people with advanced degrees. She'd never even finished high school, but something about their problem nagged at her. "May I look?" she asked, pointing to the prototype. The engineers exchanged glances. Dr. Wells shrugged. "Sure, we could use a fresh perspective at this point." Rosa approached the workbench carefully. The device was more complicated up close, but she recognized the basic principles. Water went in here, passed through these filters, and came out there. She studied the arrangement of tubes and containers. "What's the problem with it?" she asked. Chen answered. It works perfectly at this size. Clean water, minimal waste, low energy use. But when we try to make it bigger, which we need to do for it to be useful in the real world, the pressure drops and the whole system fails. Rosa nodded slowly. The setup reminded her of something, but she couldn't quite place it. Where will people use this? She asked. The curly-haired woman answered. Primarily rural communities in drought-affected regions. Places where people might have to walk miles for water, and where electricity is limited or non-existent. Just like my village, Rosa thought. How much bigger does it need to be? She asked. About 5 times this size, Dr. Wells said. It needs to process at least 100 liters a day to be viable for a small community. Rosa's mind flashed back to her childhood. The way her grandfather had arranged the barrels during the rainy season. How he'd explained that water always wants to go down, and that you could use that natural force instead of fighting it. Can I come back tomorrow? She asked suddenly. I think I might have an idea, but I need to draw it out first. The engineers looked at her with expressions ranging from doubt to desperate hope. What's your name? Dr. Wells asked. Rosa Mendez. I clean this floor. He studied her face for a moment, then nodded. All right, Rosa, we'll be here. That night, Rosa barely slept. She dug out her old notebooks where she'd sketched her grandfather's water systems years ago, trying to preserve his knowledge. She wasn't an engineer, but she understood water in a way only someone who had experienced scarcity could. The next morning, she arrived at work early with several pages of rough drawings. She'd used colored pencils to make her ideas clearer, feeling slightly embarrassed by the childish appearance compared to the complex computer models she'd seen in the lab. She almost lost her nerve at the lab door. These people were experts. She was just a cleaning lady with a middle school education. What if they laughed at her? What if she was completely wrong? But then she remembered her village. Places like it still existed all over the world. Places where clean water meant the difference between life and death. If there was even a small chance her idea could help, she had to try. Rosa took a deep breath and knocked on the door. Inside, fewer engineers were present, just Dr. Wells, Chen, and the curly-haired woman whose name badge read Dr. Patel. They looked even more tired than yesterday, if that was possible. You came back, Dr. Wells said, sounding mildly surprised. Rosa nodded and carefully placed her drawings on a clear corner of the workbench. In my village, we had very little water most of the year. My grandfather built systems to catch rain and keep it clean. She pointed to her sketches. He always said water wants to move in certain ways. If you fight against those ways, you lose power. The 3 engineers gathered around her simple drawings. Dr. Patel's eyebrows rose slightly as she studied the sketch. You're suggesting we reconfigure the entire flow pattern? She asked. Rosa nodded hesitantly. In your design, the water is fighting gravity here and here. My grandfather would say you're wasting energy pushing water uphill. Chen leaned closer. But we need the water to pass through these filters in sequence. Yes, Rosa agreed. But maybe the filters can be arranged differently. Like this. She pointed to another drawing. Dr. Wells stroked his beard thoughtfully. This is actually quite interesting. It's basically suggesting a gravity-assisted flow system, Dr. Patel said, excitement creeping into her voice, with staged filtration at different heights. It would completely change our pressure calculations, Chen added. They began talking rapidly, using technical terms Rosa didn't understand. But she could see from their animated gestures and brightening faces that something had clicked. Dr. Wells turned to her. Rosa, would you be willing to stay and explain more about these systems you've seen? Your perspective might be exactly what we need. Rosa glanced at her cleaning cart, then back at the engineers. For the first time in years, someone was interested in what she knew, not just what she could clean. Yes, she said with a small smile. I would like that very much. As the day went on, the energy in the lab transformed. The other engineers returned, initially skeptical of the cleaning lady's presence at their workbench. But as Dr. Wells explained the new approach they were considering, the atmosphere shifted from doubt to cautious optimism. Rosa watched as they began sketching new designs based partly on her grandfather's simple wisdom. She didn't understand all the science, but she understood the problem. Sometimes that was enough to see a solution that others had missed. By evening, they had begun rebuilding parts of the prototype. It was just the beginning of a possible solution, There were still countless details to work out and tests to run. But for the first time in weeks, there was hope in Lab 7. As Rosa finally returned to her regular duties, Dr. Patel caught up with her at the door. "Thank you," she said simply. "Sometimes we get so caught up in complex solutions that we miss the wisdom of practical experience." Rosa smiled. "My grandfather always said that water teaches patience and respect. It always finds a way through, around, or over any obstacle. Maybe your project just needed to remember that." As she pushed her cleaning cart down the hallway, Rosa felt a warm sense of pride. She might not have degrees hanging on her wall, but she carried something valuable. Knowledge passed down through generations of people who had lived in harmony with the natural world and its most precious resource. And sometimes, that kind of knowledge could solve problems that even the smartest engineers couldn't crack alone. The next morning, Rosa arrived at TechCore Industries earlier than usual. She hadn't told her sister why she needed to be dropped off before her shift started. How could she explain that she, a cleaning lady, was helping engineers solve a technical problem? They would think she was making things up. The security guard raised his eyebrows when she entered at 7 a.m., 2 hours before her normal time. "Early bird today, huh?" Rosa nodded, clutching her lunch bag that contained not just food but more drawings she'd stayed up late working on. "Just some extra work to do," she said vaguely. When she reached the 3rd floor, she was surprised to find the lab already humming with activity. Dr. Wells, Dr. Patel, and 3 other engineers were gathered around a whiteboard, deep in discussion. The prototype had been partially disassembled, its components spread across 2 workbenches. Chen noticed her first and waved her over. "Rosa, we've been implementing some of your ideas. Come see?" She approached cautiously, still feeling out of place in her gray uniform among their white lab coats. The whiteboard was filled with new diagrams that looked vaguely like her sketches, but with many more technical details added. "We stayed late redesigning the flow system based on your gravity-assisted concept," Dr. Patel explained. "The math actually works out beautifully." Rosa smiled, though she understood little of the equations surrounding the diagrams. "I brought some more drawings," she said, pulling her notebook from her lunch bag. I remembered more details about my grandfather's systems. Dr. Wells took her notebook with genuine interest. "These are quite detailed. Did your grandfather teach you how to build these?" Rosa nodded. "I helped him from when I was very small. We had to be clever with water in our village." During the dry months, every drop counted. For the next hour, Rosa explained her drawings, describing how her grandfather had created a series of collection pools at different heights, using the natural slope of the land to move water through homemade filters of sand, charcoal, and special stones from the river. "The water always moved naturally," she explained. "He said forcing water to go where it doesn't want it takes too much power. Better to guide it than push it." The engineers listened intently, occasionally scribbling notes or asking questions. Rosa was surprised at how seriously they took her ideas. No one had ever treated her knowledge as valuable before. "I need to start my shift," she finally said, looking at the clock. "My supervisor will wonder where I am." "Wait," Dr. Wells said. He picked up the phone and made a quick call. "Hello, this is Dr. Wells from engineering. Is this building services?" "Yes, I need to borrow Rosa Mendez today for a special project." "Yes, the whole day. We'll handle her regular duties." "Thank you." He hung up and smiled at Rosa's surprised expression. "There, now you can stay and help us. If you want to, that is." Rosa felt a flutter of excitement and anxiety. "But I don't know anything about engineering." "You know plenty about practical water systems," Chen countered. "And right now, that's exactly what we need." The day passed in a blur of activity. Rosa watched as the engineers rebuilt parts of the prototype, incorporating elements from her grandfather's designs. They explained concepts to her as they worked, and she was surprised to find she could follow most of it when they used plain language. By afternoon, they had completed a rough version of the redesigned system. The filters were now arranged in a cascading pattern, using gravity to help move water through the process rather than fighting against it. "The real test will be when we scale it up," Dr. Patel said. "That's where we've always hit the wall before." They gathered around as Dr. Wells activated the prototype. Water began flowing through the system, clear at first, then intentionally muddied with test contaminants that Dr. Patel added to the input reservoir. Everyone held their breath as the water made its journey through the filters. Rosa found herself whispering a silent prayer. not just for the engineers' jobs, but for all the villages like hers that needed clean water. When the first drops emerged from the final output tube, Dr. Wells collected them in a testing vial. The liquid looked clear to the naked eye, but he quickly ran it through an analysis machine. The room was silent as they waited for the results. Finally, the machine beeped. Dr. Wells studied the readout and slowly began to smile. 97% purification, he announced. That's better than our original small-scale prototype. The room erupted in cheers. Chen gave Rosa an impulsive hug, then stepped back embarrassed. Sorry, we've been stuck for so long. This is just the beginning, Dr. Wells cautioned, though he couldn't hide his own excitement. We still need to test the scaled-up version. And if that works, we'll need to make it simple enough to be maintained by people without technical training, added another engineer named Quan. That's important, Rosa agreed. In my village, anything too complicated would break and never be fixed. Would you be willing to consult with us on that aspect as well? Dr. Wells asked. Your perspective would be invaluable. Rosa felt a strange mix of pride and disbelief. Yesterday, she had been invisible to these people, just the woman who emptied their trash. Today, they wanted her opinion, valued her knowledge. Yes, she said, I would like to help. Over the next few days, Rosa split her time between her regular cleaning duties and hours in the lab. The building services manager was confused, but didn't argue with Dr. Wells's requests for her assistance. Her co-workers were curious, though, and rumors began to spread about why a janitor was spending so much time with the engineering team. They say you're fixing their water machine, her friend Louisa said during lunch break. Is it true? Rosa shrugged, uncomfortable with the attention. I'm just helping a little bit. My grandfather built water systems in our village. It's nothing special, but it was special. By the end of the week, the engineers had constructed a medium-sized version of the prototype, about twice the original size. The test results remained promising, with only minor adjustments needed. If this trend holds, we might actually solve the scaling problem, Dr. Patel told Rosa as they reviewed the latest data. All because you saw something we missed. Rosa shook her head. You are the real experts. I just remembered how my grandfather did things. That's expertise too, Dr. Patel insisted. Different from ours, but no less valuable. In fact, I think that's been our problem all along. We've been too focused on theoretical solutions and not enough on practical wisdom. On Friday afternoon, as Rosa was finishing her shift, Dr. Wells called her into a meeting room where the entire engineering team had gathered. She entered nervously, wondering if she had somehow overstepped her bounds. Instead, Dr. Wells gestured for her to take a seat at the table, not on the sidelines, but right in the middle of the team. Rosa, he began, we've made more progress in the past week than in the previous 3 months. Monday morning, we're presenting our new design to Mr. Hayes and the executive team. We'd like you to join us for that presentation. Rosa's eyes widened. Me? But I'm not. You're a key part of this project now, Chen interrupted. We wouldn't have gotten this far without you. The thing is, Dr. Wells continued, we'd like to properly acknowledge your contribution. With your permission, we want to credit you as a co-developer of the new system. The room fell silent as Rosa tried to process what she was hearing. Co-developer? Her name alongside all these highly educated engineers. But I didn't do much, she protested. I just shared stories about my grandfather. Those stories led to a complete redesign of our approach, Dr. Patel said. That's not a small contribution. Dr. Wells leaned forward. Rosa, there's something else. If this project succeeds, and I believe it will, there will be patents filed. As a co-developer, you would be entitled to share in any financial benefits that result from commercialization. Rosa felt lightheaded. She had never imagined anything like this when she'd first spoken up in the lab. She had only wanted to help solve a problem that reminded her of home. I don't know what to say, she managed finally. Say you'll be there Monday, Chen urged. 10 o'clock in the main conference room. Rosa thought about her supervisor, about her cleaning schedule. I would need to get time off. Already arranged, Dr. Wells assured her. And he hesitated. We thought you might want this for the meeting. He handed her a small package. Inside was a TechCore polo shirt, like the ones the engineers wore on casual days instead of lab coats. So you feel like part of the team, Dr. Patel explained. Because you are. Rosa ran her fingers over the embroidered company logo, tears pricking at the corners of her eyes. In that moment, she wished her grandfather could see her, see that the knowledge he had passed down, the practical wisdom that had sustained their village for generations, was being recognized as valuable in this high-tech world. "Thank you," she said softly. "I will be there." As she left the building that evening, Rosa looked up at the gleaming glass tower of TechCore Industries. For 3 years she had entered through the service entrance, head down, invisible. On Mondays she would walk through the front doors, head held high, bringing with her the wisdom of her ancestors. She hadn't solved the engineer's problem alone. It had been a true collaboration of different kinds of knowledge. But she had been brave enough to speak up when it mattered, to share what she knew even when she doubted its value. That night, as she carefully ironed her new TechCore polo shirt, Rosa wondered what Monday would bring. The future suddenly seemed full of unexpected possibilities. Monday morning arrived with a mix of sunshine and clouds, matching Rosa's own swirling emotions. She stood before her small bathroom mirror, hardly recognizing herself in the TechCore polo shirt. She had paired it with her nicest black pants, the ones she usually saved for church, and had pulled her hair back with a tortoiseshell clip her sister had given her for her birthday. "You look like you work in an office," her niece Lucia had said with wide eyes when Rosa emerged from her bedroom. "Just for today," Rosa had replied, trying to calm the butterflies in her stomach. As she approached the gleaming main entrance of TechCore Industries instead of the service door she'd used for years, those butterflies returned in full force. The security guard at the front desk did a double take when she gave her name. "Rosa Mendez?" "The cleaning," he caught himself. "I mean, you're here for the executive meeting?" Rosa nodded, clutching her ID badge. "Dr. Wells is expecting me." The guard checked his computer, eyebrows raised. "So he is. 10th floor, main conference room." He handed her a visitor badge that read engineering consultant instead of her usual maintenance staff tag. The main elevator was nothing like the service elevator she usually took. This one had polished wood panels and moved so smoothly she barely felt it rise. When the doors opened on the 10th floor, Rosa found Chen waiting for her. "You made it," he said, looking relieved. "The team's already inside. Mr. Hayes just arrived with the executives." Rosa felt her throat tighten. "There are executives?" "Just the leadership team," Chen said, as if that were somehow reassuring. "Don't worry, Dr. Wells will handle most of the presentation. You only need to explain your contribution if they have specific questions." Rosa followed him down a hallway lined with framed patents and awards. Through glass walls, she could see groups of well-dressed people in meeting rooms, all looking important and busy. She felt increasingly out of place despite the company polo shirt. The main conference room doors were open. Inside, Dr. Wells, Dr. Patel, and the rest of the engineering team were arranging materials at one end of a long table. At the other end sat 5 people in business attire, including a tall man with steel gray hair whom Rosa recognized from company photos as Mr. Hayes, the CEO. Dr. Wells looked up as they entered. "Ah, Rosa. Perfect timing." He guided her to a seat among the engineering team, introduced her briefly to the executives, then launched into the presentation. Rosa sat quietly, hands folded in her lap, as Dr. Wells described the months-long struggle with the filtration system's scaling problem. The executives listened with serious expressions, occasionally jotting notes. Mr. Hayes in particular had a stern, impatient look that made Rosa nervous. "So after exploring countless technical solutions," Dr. Wells continued, "we had a breakthrough from an unexpected source." He gestured toward Rosa. "Ms. Mendez here provided insights based on traditional water management, systems that completely reoriented our approach." All eyes turned to Rosa. She felt her cheeks grow warm. "You're on the cleaning staff, correct?" Mr. Hayes asked directly, checking a note in front of him. "Yes, sir," Rosa answered, her voice smaller than she intended. "And you have engineering background?" "No, sir. I learned from my grandfather in my village in Guatemala. He built water systems there." Mr. Hayes's expression was unreadable. "Continue," he said to Dr. Wells. Dr. Wells switched to the technical details of the redesign, showing slides of the new prototype and test results. As he spoke, Rosa noticed Mr. Hayes studying her rather than the presentation. She tried to keep her face neutral, though her heart was racing. "The key insight," Dr. Patel added, was recognizing that our original design fought against natural water flow principles. By reconfiguring to work with gravity rather than against it, we not only solved the scaling problem, but improved efficiency by 23%. One of the executives, a woman with short gray hair, leaned forward. And this solution came from, she glanced at her notes. Traditional water systems? Yes, Dr. Wells confirmed. Ms. Mendez shared how her grandfather's systems in rural Guatemala used gravity-assisted flow and staged filtration. The principles were remarkably applicable to our high-tech approach, just executed with different materials. Interesting, the woman said. Ms. Mendez, could you tell us more about these traditional systems? Rosa felt a momentary panic, then took a deep breath. This was something she knew well. She didn't need fancy words or technical terms to describe her grandfather's work. In my village, she began, we had little water and no electricity. My grandfather built systems that caught rain from the mountains. He placed collection pools at different heights connected by bamboo pipes. She used her hands to illustrate as she spoke. Water flowed down naturally through sand, special river stones, and charcoal. Each stage cleaned the water in different ways. As she spoke, her nervousness faded. This was her grandfather's wisdom, passed down through generations. There was nothing to be ashamed of. The most important thing my grandfather taught me was to respect water's natural behavior, she continued. Water always wants to flow downhill. If you try to push it uphill, you waste energy. Better to arrange your system so gravity helps you. The room was silent when she finished. Rosa wondered if she had said something wrong. Then Mr. Hayes spoke. Dr. Wells, is the full-scale prototype ready for demonstration? Yes, sir. We completed it over the weekend. Show me. The meeting moved to the lab where the engineers had set up the full-sized version of the filtration system. It was much larger than the original prototype, about the size of a refrigerator, but followed the same cascading design Rosa had inspired Dr. Wells, explained each component as Mr. Hayes and the executives examined the system. Rosa hung back, feeling her part was done, but Dr. Patel motioned her forward when they prepared for the demonstration. Rosa should activate it, Dr. Patel suggested. It's fitting, given her contribution. Before Rosa could protest, Dr. Wells agreed. Excellent idea. Suddenly, Rosa found herself standing in front of the executives, her hand on the activation switch. She felt a brief moment of panic. What if it failed? What if her ideas had seemed good in the small version but didn't work at full scale? She thought of her grandfather, of his patient hands showing her how to arrange the stones just so, how to test if water was clean by looking at it in sunlight. He had trusted ancient knowledge passed down through generations. She needed to trust it too. Rosa pressed the switch. The system hummed to life. Contaminated water from the input tank began flowing through the cascading filters. Everyone watched in tense silence as the water made its journey through the system, moving naturally with gravity's help rather, then being forced through with mechanical pressure. The first clear drops appeared at the output pipe. Dr. Wells collected them in a testing tube and ran them through the analysis equipment. The seconds stretched as they waited for the results. When they came, Dr. Wells couldn't hide his smile. 99% purification efficiency, he announced. And the flow rate is consistent with our projections for full-scale operation. The engineering team broke into relieved smiles. Dr. Patel squeezed Rosa's hand. Mr. Hayes studied the readout himself, then examined a glass of the purified water, holding it up to the light just as Rosa's grandfather had taught her to do. Finally, he took a small sip. Impressive, he said, setting down the glass. How soon can we move to production? With your approval, we can begin immediately, Dr. Wells said. We've already documented the new design and prepared manufacturing specifications. You have my approval, Mr. Hayes said. He turned to Rosa, who was still trying to process what was happening. Ms. Mendez, TechCore Industries owes you a debt of gratitude. Your contribution has salvaged a multi-million-dollar project. Rosa felt a lump in her throat. Thank you, sir. But I only shared what my grandfather taught me. The engineers did the real work. True innovation often happens at the intersection of different types of knowledge, Mr. Hayes replied. What we couldn't solve with advanced degrees in computer simulations, you helped solve with generational wisdom. He turned to Dr. Wells. I want her properly credited on the patents and included in the project bonus structure. Already arranged, sir. Dr. Wells confirmed. Good. And I'd like to discuss creating a new position. Mr. Hayes looked at Rosa directly. We clearly need someone with your perspective on our development team. Would you be interested in becoming a formal consultant on this and future projects? Rosa felt the room spin slightly. A consultant? Her? But I don't have education. You have knowledge we need, Mr. Hayes said simply. We can provide training for the technical aspects. But the perspective you bring, that can't be taught in any university. As the executives and engineers continued discussing production timelines, Rosa stood quietly, trying to absorb what had just happened. This morning she had been a cleaning lady. Now she was being offered a position as a consultant. Her name would be on a patent, and the water filtration system she had helped create would soon be helping villages like her own. She thought of her grandfather, who had died never knowing how valuable his knowledge truly was. She would make sure his wisdom lived on, not just in her memory, but in technology that could help people around the world. When the meeting ended, Dr. Patel found her still standing by the prototype, running her fingers along the pipes arranged in the pattern her grandfather had perfected generations ago. You've changed everything, Dr. Patel said quietly. Not just the project, but how we think about innovation itself. Rosa smiled. My grandfather always said water teaches us patience and humility. Today, I think it taught us all something about wisdom, too. Outside the lab windows, the clouds had parted, letting sunshine stream into the room. It illuminated the clear water flowing through the system, a perfect blend of ancient wisdom and modern technology, working together to bring life. The news spread through tech core industries like wildfire. By lunchtime, everyone seemed to know that Rosa, a member of the cleaning staff, had somehow saved the company's biggest project. The story grew with each telling. Some said she had completely redesigned the system overnight, others claimed she had some secret engineering degree. The truth, as usual, was both simpler and more profound. Rosa sat in the Human Resources office, still wearing her Tech Core polo shirt, as Ms. Rivera explained the details of her new position. The official title is Traditional Knowledge Consultant, Ms. Rivera said, sliding the contract across the desk. It's a newly created role. You'll work directly with the engineering team on the water filtration project, as well as consult on other projects where your perspective might be valuable. Rosa stared at the salary figure on the paper. It was more than triple what she earned as a cleaner. This can't be right, she whispered. Ms. Rivera smiled. It's the standard rate for specialized consultants. Mr. Hayes was quite clear about this. Your knowledge has immense value to the company. Rosa's hand trembled slightly as she signed the papers. Just 2 weeks ago, she had been invisible to most people in this building. Now she was signing a contract that would change her life completely. You'll start next Monday, Ms. Rivera said. That gives building services time to find a replacement for your current position. Dr. Wells has already arranged for you to have a desk in the engineering department. As Rosa left the HR office, she felt strangely disconnected from reality. In the elevator, 2 women in business suits whispered and glanced her way. In the lobby, the security guard who had barely acknowledged her for 3 years now gave her a respectful nod. Outside, the autumn air felt crisp against her face. Rosa sat on a bench in the small park across from Tech Core, trying to process everything that had happened. She pulled out her phone and called her sister. Carla, you won't believe what just happened. The weekend passed in a blur of preparation. Rosa's sister helped her shop for appropriate work clothes. Nothing fancy, but nicer than she had ever owned. Her nieces and nephews were excited about her new, important job, though they didn't quite understand what a consultant did. Rosa wasn't entirely sure herself. Monday morning arrived both too quickly and not quickly enough. Rosa dressed carefully in her new navy slacks and light blue blouse, feeling like she was preparing for a costume party. When she caught the bus to Tech Core, she realized it was the first time in 3 years she wouldn't be riding with the other cleaning staff who took the early bus. At the front entrance, the security guard handed her a new ID badge that read Rosa Mendez, Technical Consultant. The elevator seemed to move too quickly as it carried her to the engineering floor. Dr. Wells met her at the elevator. Ready for your first day? Rosa nodded, though in truth she felt anything but ready. He led her through the engineering department, where people looked up from their desks with curious expressions. Some she recognized from her cleaning rounds, others were strangers. All seemed to be studying her with interest. "This is your workspace," Dr. Wells said, showing her to a desk near the lab. It had a computer, a phone, and a small potted plant with a welcome card signed by the entire engineering team. Rosa set down her bag, touching the desk surface lightly as if to confirm it was real. "What exactly will I be doing?" "Today we'll get you oriented," Dr. Wells explained. "You'll need some basic training on our computer systems and project management tools. But your main role will be to review designs and prototypes from a practical perspective, looking for the same kinds of insights you provided for the water filtration system." Throughout the morning, Rosa was introduced to software programs, company protocols, and the other members of the engineering department. Everyone was polite, but she could sense their curiosity and, from some, their skepticism. She heard whispers when she passed by certain desks. "Just a cleaner, doesn't even have a degree, just got lucky with one idea." By lunchtime, Rosa felt overwhelmed and out of place. She sat alone in the corner of the company cafeteria, picking at her food and wondering if she had made a terrible mistake. Perhaps she should have stayed in her cleaning job, or at least she knew what she was doing. A tray clattered onto the table, startling her. Dr. Patel sat down across from her with a friendly smile. "First days are always hard," she said, as if reading Rosa's thoughts. "When I started here 5 years ago, I cried in the bathroom during lunch." Rosa looked up in surprise. "You did? But you're so confident," Dr. Patel laughed. "Now maybe, but then I was terrified. Everyone seemed so smart, so sure of themselves. I felt like an imposter who would be discovered any minute." She unwrapped her sandwich. "Sound familiar?" Rosa nodded slowly. "The truth is," Dr. Patel continued, "most of us feel that way sometimes. Even the most experienced engineers. The difference is that some people are better at hiding it. But they're right to doubt me," Rosa said quietly. "I don't have education. I don't understand most of what you all talk about." "Education comes in many forms," Dr. Patel replied. "My parents spent a fortune sending me to university. I have 2 advanced degrees, but neither of those degrees taught me what your grandfather taught you. Practical wisdom passed down through generations of real-world problem-solving." She leaned forward. "Rosa, do you know why our filtration system failed before? Because we were all trained in the same schools, reading the same textbooks, following the same patterns of thought. We needed someone with a completely different perspective to see what we were missing." After lunch, Chen gave Rosa a tour of the prototype manufacturing area, where technicians were building multiple versions of the redesigned filtration system for testing. "We're running durability tests now," he explained, "making sure the system can handle different water conditions, varying levels of contaminants, that sort of thing." Rosa watched as one technician deliberately poured muddy, debris-filled water into a test unit. It reminded her of the rainy season back home, when the water would run thick with soil from the mountains. "In my village," she said slowly, "when the water was very dirty like that, my grandfather would add a pre-filtering stage. Just a simple basket with layers of cloth and grass that caught the big pieces before they could clog the main filters." Chen looked thoughtful. "A pre-filtering stage that could significantly extend the life of the primary filters in high sediment conditions." He made a quick note on his tablet. "See, you're already consulting." By the end of her first week, Rosa had settled into something of a routine. Mornings were spent learning technical aspects of the project, understanding the materials, manufacturing processes, and testing protocols. Afternoons often found her in the lab, observing tests and offering suggestions based on her practical experience. Some of the engineers remained distant, clearly unsure about her role. Others, particularly those directly involved with the water filtration project, sought out her opinion regularly. Gradually, Rosa began to feel less like an imposter and more like a valued team member. On Friday afternoon, Mr. Hayes called an all-hands meeting in the company auditorium. The entire engineering department filed in, along with executives and representatives from marketing and production. Rosa sat in the back row, still not quite comfortable with being the center of attention. Mr. Hayes stood at the podium, his commanding presence silencing the room immediately. "As most of you know," he began, 2 weeks ago, our water filtration project was on the verge of cancellation after months of failing to solve a critical design flaw. Today, I'm pleased to announce that not only has that flaw been corrected, but the redesigned system has exceeded all performance targets in testing. polite applause filled the room. What many of you may not know, Mr. Hayes continued, is that this breakthrough came from an unexpected source. He gestured toward the back of the room. Rosa Mendez, would you please stand? Rosa felt her cheeks burn as all heads turned her way. Reluctantly, she stood. Ms. Mendez was working as a member of our cleaning staff when she provided the key insight that transformed our approach to the filtration system. Her knowledge of traditional water management techniques, learned from her grandfather in rural Guatemala, offered a perspective our engineers had never considered. The room was silent now, all eyes on Rosa. This is why, effective immediately, TechCore Industries is launching a new initiative called Diverse Knowledge Integration. We will be actively seeking to incorporate traditional and indigenous knowledge systems into our technical development process. Mr. Hayes looked directly at Rosa. Ms. Mendez will head this initiative as our first traditional knowledge consultant. I expect everyone to give her the same respect you would give any other technical expert in this company. The applause that followed was more enthusiastic this time. As Rosa sat down, she felt a curious mix of embarrassment and pride. After the meeting, engineers she had never spoken to came up to introduce themselves. Some seemed genuinely interested in her perspective, others clearly motivated by the CEO's endorsement. Either way, Rosa found herself suddenly visible in a way she had never experienced before. As the crowd thinned, Dr. Wells approached with a middle-aged man Rosa didn't recognize. Rosa, I'd like you to meet Dr. Takahashi from our Tokyo office. He's heading up the drought-resistant agriculture project and is very interested in your background. Dr. Takahashi bowed slightly. Ms. Mendez, I understand your knowledge helped solve a problem our best engineers couldn't crack. I wonder if you might have insights about traditional farming methods that could help our project as well. For the first time since this whirlwind began, Rosa felt a spark of genuine confidence. This was a conversation she could have, about growing food with little water, about her grandmother's techniques for keeping plants alive during the dry season. I would be happy to share what I know, she said with a small smile. As she left the building that evening, Rosa paused to look up at the TechCore logo illuminated against the darkening sky. The company's slogan glowed beneath it, Innovation for a Better World. Perhaps, she thought, innovation didn't always mean inventing something new. Sometimes it meant remembering something old, something proven by generations of use, and finding a way to bring that ancient wisdom into the modern world. 6 months had passed since Rosa's life had changed forever. Spring sunshine streamed through the windows of the conference room where she sat with Dr. Wells, Dr. Patel, and 3 other members of the water filtration team. On the large screen at the front of the room, a video call connected them to a remote village in Kenya, where the first community-sized filtration system had been installed 2 months ago. The village elder, a woman with deep smile lines and bright, intelligent eyes, was speaking through a translator. The system has brought clean water to our people for 60 days now without any problems. Our children are healthier. The women save 4 hours each day that they used to spend walking for water. Rosa felt a lump form in her throat as she watched children filling brightly colored containers with clear water from the TechCore system, a system that now carried her name on its patent, a system that might never have existed if she hadn't found the courage to speak up that night in the lab. We have followed all the maintenance procedures, the village elder continued. The picture guide you created makes it very simple for anyone to understand. Rosa smiled at that. The picture-based maintenance guide had been her idea. Not everyone can read, she had told the documentation team, but everyone can follow clear pictures. The resulting guide used simple illustrations that required no words, no translation, and no technical knowledge. When the call ended, Dr. Wells turned to the team with a broad smile. That's the 5th successful installation report. The system is performing even better in the field than it did in our tests. The pre-filtering modification Rosa suggested for high sediment areas has been particularly effective, Dr. Patel added. The main filters are lasting 40% longer than projected. As the team discussed the data, Rosa sat quietly, still sometimes amazed to find herself in this room, part of these conversations. The past 6 months had been challenging but rewarding beyond anything she could have imagined. Her new role had required adjustments for everyone. Some engineers had initially viewed her with skepticism or even resentment. Others had expected her to magically solve every problem with some kind of traditional wisdom. Finding her place within the technical team had taken time and patience. Rosa had worked hard to learn the technical aspects of the projects, spending evenings studying engineering basics. At the same time, she had become more confident in sharing her practical knowledge, recognizing its unique value. Gradually, a balance had emerged, a true integration of different ways of knowing. "Rosa, do you have time to stop by Lab 3 this afternoon?" Dr. Wells asked as the meeting ended. "Dr. Takahashi's team wants your input on their irrigation prototype." Rosa nodded. The drought-resistant agriculture project had become her second major focus at TechCore. Her grandmother had been a skilled gardener who could coax plants from the driest soil, and Rosa had grown up learning techniques passed down through generations of farmers who had survived on land where water was precky. As she walked through the engineering department, Rosa no longer felt like an outsider. She exchanged greetings with colleagues, stopped to look at a new design one engineer wanted her opinion on, and even helped a new intern find the supply room. In Lab 3, Dr. Takahashi and his team were testing a solar-powered drip irrigation system designed for small farms in arid regions. The system was technically impressive, with sensors that measured soil moisture and released water in precisely calibrated amounts. "What do you think?" Dr. Takahashi asked after demonstrating the prototype. Rosa studied the system, thinking about the farmers in her village. "It's very clever," she said carefully, "but I see 3 potential problems for real-world use." The engineers listened intently as she explained her concerns. The calibration process was too complex for farmers without technical training. The sensor probes would likely be damaged during normal field work. And most importantly, the entire system would fail if even one component broke. "In my village, the best systems were ones that could be fixed with local materials," she explained. "A farmer can't wait weeks for a replacement part to be shipped when crops are dying." Rather than being defensive, Dr. Takahashi nodded thoughtfully. "These are exactly the kinds of insights we need. What would you suggest?" By the end of the afternoon, they had sketched a modified design that kept the core technology but made it more robust, repairable, and user-friendly. The technical elegance remained, but now it was grounded in practical reality. As Rosa left the building that evening, her phone buzzed with a message from Mr. Hayes. "My office, 9 a.m. tomorrow." Good news. The next morning, Rosa arrived early, curious about the meeting. Mr. Hayes was known for being direct and not one for unnecessary conversations. His assistant showed her in promptly at 9. Mr. Hayes stood by the window of his spacious office, looking out at the city below. "The water filtration system has been an unqualified success," he said without preamble. 6 months, 12 installations, 0 failures. The field reports exceed all expectations." "I'm very glad," Rosa said. "The board has approved full production scaling. We're projecting installations in over 200 communities within the next 18 months. He turned to face her. "There's also been interest from several international aid organizations and 2 UN agencies." Rosa smiled. This was indeed good news, not just for TechCore but for countless villages like her own, where clean water would transform daily life. "But that's not why I called you here," Mr. Hayes continued. He picked up a folder from his desk and handed it to her. "This is a proposal for a new division within TechCore. We're calling it the Traditional Knowledge Integration Group." Rosa opened the folder and scanned the document inside. Her eyes widened as she understood what she was reading. "You want me to lead this division?" Mr. Hayes nodded. "You've proven the concept works. Your input has improved not just the water project, but 3 other initiatives. Now we want to expand the approach." He explained the vision. A team dedicated to bridging traditional knowledge and modern technology across all TechCore projects. The division would include engineers, but also anthropologists, historians, and most importantly, people like Rosa who carried practical wisdom from cultures around the world. "We'll need to find more people like you," Mr. Hayes said. "People with deep traditional knowledge who can speak to both worlds." Rosa thought of her cousin who knew the old ways of weather prediction that had guided farmers for centuries. She thought of her uncle who could build structures that withstood hurricanes using only local materials. How many others were out there, carrying valuable knowledge that the modern world had forgotten or never known? "I know where to start looking," she said. That afternoon, Rosa stood at the front of the auditorium facing the entire engineering department. 6 months ago, this would have terrified her. Today she felt nervous but ready. As most of you know, I didn't come to TechCore as an engineer, she began. I came as a cleaning lady with memories of my grandfather's water systems. I never imagined that knowledge would be valuable here. The room was silent, everyone listening intently. What I've learned over these months is that the best solutions often come when we combine different ways of knowing. When technical expertise meets practical wisdom. She explained the new division Mr. Hayes had approved and the vision behind it. As she spoke, she could see the reactions in the audience: interest, curiosity, and from some, the lingering skepticism she had come to expect. This isn't about replacing technical expertise, she assured them. It's about complementing it. It's about recognizing that knowledge comes in many forms, and that wisdom earned through generations of practical experience deserves respect alongside academic learning. After the presentation, Dr. Patel found her in the hallway. That was impressive, she said. You've come a long way from the woman who was afraid to speak up in the lab. Rosa smiled. I still get nervous, but I've learned that what I know has value, even if it didn't come from a university. More than value, Dr. Patel corrected. It's changed how we think about innovation itself. That evening, Rosa called her sister with the news about her promotion. As they talked, she could hear her nieces and nephews playing in the background. One day she thought she would teach them everything their great-grandfather had taught her, not just as family stories, but as valuable knowledge worthy of respect. Later, alone in her apartment, Rosa looked at a framed photo on her wall, her grandfather standing proudly beside one of his water systems. It was an old, faded picture taken years before she was born. We did it, abuelo, she whispered. Your wisdom is changing the world. Outside her window, the lights of the city twinkled in the darkness. Somewhere across the ocean, in a village much like the one where she had grown up, a child was drinking clean water from a system that might never have existed without the knowledge passed down from her grandfather. Rosa thought about the journey that had brought her here. From cleaning floors in silence to leading a division at a major technology company. It had begun with a simple act of courage, speaking up when she saw a solution, even when she doubted her own right to be heard. The world was full of people like her, carrying generations of wisdom that modern science had overlooked. People whose knowledge could help solve the complex problems facing humanity, if only they were given the chance to share it. Thanks to her, more of those voices would now be heard. And that, Rosa realized, might be the most important innovation of all.